John are going to watch the Salena Vertolomo interview that was removed from YouTube. So some of you may remember seeing this exclusive interview with her and Jimmy Bell that was posted maybe about 2 years ago, maybe or a year and a half ago. And he had his own reasons for removing it. It's none of my business, but I had basically asked him if I could repost it, and he sent it to me and gave me permission to repost it. So me and John are going to now watch this interview, and we're going to break it down and show the similarities on our situations and what she's saying and how everything connects.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Big Picture. This is episode number 15, and we have a very, very special episode this evening or day, wherever you're watching this at. I have had the opportunity, and very thankful for it, to have an interview with Miss Salena Vertolomo. She actually came on the scene, it seems like just like a month or two ago, with her video where she went down to Lumberton to visit Anthony Morris. And that video, that TikTok, apparently set the EXJW community on fire. However, what a lot of people don't know is she just didn't pop up on the scene. This is stuff that she's been working on for a while. And I know that the community has had a lot of questions. And so we're going to have a conversation. We're going to ask some of the questions. I did pull some questions from the viewers in your comments. And we're going to just have a conversation, like I said. Now, I'm going to go ahead and preface this with this is her journey. And she is sharing it with us out of the kindness of her heart. And basically wanting the folks to know that what you're seeing in the news, what you're hearing about Watchtower, this stuff is real. And a lot of people don't want to accept that. So hopefully this interview will open your mind a little bit and you'll be willing to dig on the information. So without further ado, hi, Salena.
Hi, Jimmy.
How are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to have you. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much, because I know a lot of people have been wanting to hear a little bit more from you, and so we're going to do that today. So I guess what I can start off with is question number one. I've heard you mention the Indigo Project. Can you explain what that is and what the goals are for that project?
Sure. So the Indigo Project is a pretty large 7-part project. It's examining 7 different aspects of essentially how America runs its churches and what's going on inside that's allowing really mass scale crime to occur, going undetected, making it protected in certain ways using church doctrine like ecclesiastical privilege. So the Indigo Project at its base level started, I would say, in around 2013. And that's because it required a lot of research, and it required me collaborating with a lot of universities and a lot of archives that I needed to verify information before I could really do much with it. So phase 1 was really about 7 years of heavy research, travel, looking at how and why church has gone so wrong in America. Now, how that pertains to the Watchtower Society is because the Watchtower Society, underneath it, below it, runs the Jehovah's Witness churches. And the crimes that were being committed, by Jehovah's Witnesses were so horrific in their nature. They were so violent, and they were being brushed under the rug, hidden from mainstream media. And when I, started looking into that during the project, it kind of just like naturally morphed into figuring out, what methods are they using for training that's creating this level of trauma? What are they doing that is perpetuating the trauma generationally? Why is there never a stop to it? You know what I'm saying? Like with all the activity for members that leave, nothing has really ever changed or been done. And so that's one aspect, is really addressing church crimes, not just with the Jehovah's Witnesses, but this project has encompassed all of the churches in America. It is just very personal to me because I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So
Yeah, me too. I get that. Now, you've been doing TikToks for a while now. I think you said you started in 2021.
yeah.
Was that when you
So I haven't. So before all of this, I wasn't on social media really at all. In fact, I had a unique upbringing, so I really never saw the news much, and I never saw much on social media. So I'm at a disadvantage because I was trying to learn TikTok at the same time as doing this. But I did. I started in 2021. I started building up an account that I used a specific name for, which was Indigo. And I selected that name because one of the aspects of the Indigo Project is visually and auditorily showing people, what tactics are they using. And behind the scenes, it's very hard to prove what they do through their broadcasting system. It's very hard to prove the criminal activity that they're using. It's hard to even prove the way that they use veiled threats, the way that they intimidate people that leave. So in examining why that is, it's because they use plausible deniability at all times. So
Let me just stop there because that's me and John's new favorite word. So, what do you think about what she's saying about that?
It's all true. It's all true. It's she chose an I can tell you right now, she chose the name Indigo for other reasons, but that's another rabbit hole that we can get into at another time. But um yeah, what she says is true. Um it- I, I, it's just I know what all she's gone through. I don't know her. I've never met her. I never talked to her. Nothing. But I know what all she's gone through, and it's just hard to look at her and know that she's gone through all this shit, and you feel for her. You hurt. You feel the hurt, and it's like, why the fuck did this stuff like this happen? And yeah, but what she's saying is all true.
someone can always say, well, it was just a coincidence, like the Toni Morris match video, for instance.
Just to emphasize this, but the wicked will perish, the enemies of Jehovah will vanish like glorious pastures, particularly they will vanish like smoke. So I thought this would be a nice memory aid to this verse stay in the mind. Here's what Jehovah's promising. As Jehovah's enemies, they're going to vanish like smoke.
But it's not a coincidence, and it's not a conspiracy theory or a coincidence. It's just very simply a cult tactic that's used to intimidate and essentially dog whistle members that they're trying to keep under control. So I thought maybe 2 years ago, while I was naming the project, I wanted to name it something that was obscure enough that they couldn't in any way use plausible deniability. So rather than calling it like the blue jay or the brown sparrow, as they're trying to, rather than doing that, I chose a very specific bird, which is the indigo bunting. And I did that knowing that they would eventually do their thing, and because they're idiots, Jimmy.
Yeah.
They're idiots.
Yeah.
So it worked out well, but it is only one of the components to it. It's just very hard because the way that it's structured, the way that they use intimidation, the way that they use threats to silence people is done not only in plain sight, the way that you can see on the JW broadcasting situation, but it's done looking seemingly innocuous. It looks innocent. It looks, like at any point, if anybody says anything, they can be like, well, they're crazy for that. But
Let me just stop there because I think what was missed was off camera. I think she was talking to Jimmy about the situation, so he already knew what she was talking about. But I just want to explain this for my audience. What she's talking about is that when she named her project the Indigo, and she's talking about how they use intimidation, things like that. They mentioned that specific bird in one of their broadcasts in a subtle way of threatening her, and they used the name of that particular bird while giving her a threatening message during the broadcast. But it was done in such a way, like she's saying that if she were to say they're threatening me, they would say, "Oh, you're crazy," right? Like, what are you talking about?
Close your literal eyes for a minute and see with your mind's eye a beautiful bird. Now open your eyes. Which bird did you see? Was it an indigo bunting, a cardinal, or a Baltimore oriole? Those are beautiful birds. But does Jehovah prefer one bird over another just because of its beauty or appearance? What bird did Jesus choose in teaching his disciples a valuable lesson about Jehovah? He used a sparrow, a plain, somewhat drab-looking little bird of small monetary value.
Which is the indigo bunting, which is the indigo bunting, which is the indigo bunting.
Was it an indigo bunting? Was it an indigo bunting? Was it an indigo bunting?
Yeah,
So,
they did the same thing to me.
yeah,
There was an assembly. It was about 2, 3 years ago. It was an assembly in Texas. I'm in California. But my mother was attending this assembly because she was visiting friends in Texas. And you know how they will play music during the intermission when the session's about to start again.
yeah.
They were playing some music, and then uh people are starting to come back into the auditorium and all that, find their seats and all that. And then this brother on stage said, friends, the session is going to start soon and blah, blah, blah. And then he said, we don't bend to outside pressure. And my mother heard this and she instantly thought, why would they say that? Now, at that time, what was going on behind the scenes is I was putting pressure on them. I was doing certain things. And there again, they have this way, and I forgot what it's called. It's a specific way of kind of bearing a message in conversation. It seems like it's regular conversation, and nobody would get it except the one person who it's directed to. And that's what she's experiencing, and I've experienced that also, because I remember when my mother got back to California, she said they did something very odd. And I said, what did they do? She said, right before the session was about to start, the assembly, they made some announcement and they said, we don't bend to outside pressure. And that's when I realized that they knew my mother was in the audience and I was doing certain things to them, and they were letting me know, we don't care.
Jehovah likely notices when a indigo bunting falls to the ground. falls to the ground, falls to the ground, falls to the ground. I feel dead inside. You're not the first servant of Jehovah to feel that way. Mephibosheth evidently felt that way. He too was crippled in both feet. King David had just honored him by promising to give him property and the privilege of eating his meals with the king. Notice how Mephibosheth felt about himself at 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 8. What is your servant, that you have turned your attention to a dead dog like me? He did not have a high opinion of himself. It sounds like low self-esteem, doesn't it? If you have a physical impairment or defect, you're not dead. To a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog like me.
And that's when I decided, okay, well then we're gonna have to go about this another way. But that's when I said they bully other people, but they don't expect to get bullied back. And when someone does have enough guts to tell them, hey, back off, they actually get offended, like we're the Watchtower, we're some bad dudes, but they're a bunch of punks. They're 12 punks. The governing body are 12 punks. Quote me on it. I don't say nothing behind anybody's back that I can't say to their face. Okay? Quote me. I don't care. They're punks. Okay? Point blank. Salena Vertolomo is proof of that, because they're gonna, gang up and try to intimidate somebody just because, she knows your secrets. She knows what you've been doing, and you just want her to keep her mouth shut and silence her. Nah, forget that.
Yeah, and that's goes along to what some of the things that happened to me, that it's just like what she's saying, that they have a way of doing things where it's designed specifically for that person, but it's done in
Yeah,
such a way to make the person look crazy if they even speak about it, but it is a way that they threaten people. So again, that's why she picked the name of that bird for her project, knowing that they would threaten her, and they would do it in such a way that sounds completely normal. But why did I mention that bird during the broadcast? Is
yeah,
because it was the name of her project. So it was a
yeah.
way to get her attention, but not the attention of other people it wasn't meant for.
To a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog like me.
It's designed that way. The system is built that way.
With that
So
said, I want to skip to a question that kind of ties into this. Do you feel that Watchtower will specifically target, let's say, whistleblowers? And what means and links do you think that they would go to try to keep someone quiet?
I don't feel that Watchtower normally does anything for whistleblowers. I feel that the way that myself and my family were targeted in a brief moment where they lost their mind and thought that everyone operates inside of a cult and doesn't live in regular land is specific, because my particular life case has a lot of information in it that 99% of Jehovah's Witnesses don't have access to, and they didn't live that experience. They also normally don't have a written court document, a court confession that involves both the predator and the elders coming in to save the day and the congregations. So I don't feel at this point that there's anything to be afraid of in whistleblowing. And I have went through a lot of lengths, personally and professionally, to make sure that the Indigo Project and anyone who is working, as an ally or is working separately on their own, everyone is sort of shooting for the same goal here. And I wanted to make sure that everyone does feel safe and does feel protected and understands that, what happened to me and my family is not the norm. It's not the norm, and it's not the normal lengths they would go to silence someone. On its worst day, they may call, they may be a pain in the ass, they might stalk you at your door. But as far as
I record them if they do that.
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of ways to deal with them. I think the thing that the Indigo Project, the one portion of it is studying, and has been studying for about 3 years now, are the effects on early childhood development. So in the year zero to six, from infanthood through 6 years old, is so it's such a huge part of development for children. And when you take a bunch of children that are born into the religion and you teach them lies as truth, and you teach them that the truth is a fake reality that you have no part of, and you also teach them to distrust, not only distrust, but hope for the death of everyone outside, including police, including law enforcement. um, you know when you're messing with someone's reality from birth through age 6.
I just want to stop there just because I think she's going to another subject, but I somewhat disagree with her when she mentioned that she doesn't think they really do that much for whistleblowers. And the reason I want to say that is just to clarify that we don't always have to believe the same thing. We don't always have to have the same perspective. I think that they do target a lot more JWs and XJWs, but she just speaking based on what she believes and what she knows. So I just want to say that when people try to look holes for things that she says or disagree with, it doesn't mean that she's wrong. It's just like we all have different perspectives. So from her knowledge, she's probably thinking that her targeting is more rare than it actually is.
Well, see, and what it is this: they don't come after you. They don't. That's there again. That's what I said about third parties. So they won't come after you. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to get caught in the middle of something, but they'll get third parties to come after you. They'll get other people to do their dirty work. Sometimes it's Masons. Sometimes it's gang stalking and harassing you that way. But whatever it is, the watchtower is behind it.
Yeah.
That's what most people don't understand, and they don't want to accept because they think, oh, it's the watchtower. All they care about is the Bible and this and that. Yeah, that's what it appears to be, but that's what's on top. Underneath, though, they have a whole army of people ready and willing to do their bidding. And they're not sometimes they're not even Jehovah's Witnesses. They're again, Freemasons are the foot soldiers who do their dirty work. So they can honestly say, with plausible deniability, we didn't do anything. Where were you on, the night of the 5th? I was at home. When maybe the night of the 5th, you were getting your house burned down, like Miss Vertolomo did, or whatever was happening to you, but they always make sure that they have some alibi and that they weren't involved, and they weren't involved, but they orchestrated it. They made it happen. They, put the order out to make it happen. So that's the only thing I disagree with her. They'll come after you. Yes, they'll come after you.
Yeah.
But, they try to do it in such a way that, they've got plausible deniability and, you look crazy in the end,
Yeah, and she's only, she hasn't really been that involved in the XJW community. Not many people have came out and talked about the stalking, and I think I'm one of the really first ones that have actually came out
because
any of those terms.
most people haven't made the connection. They haven't connected the dots.
Exactly. So her saying that she's just basing it on her limited knowledge of it's a
Yeah.
bigger problem than she realizes.
Yeah.
It crosses the line. It's no longer a religion. It's a coercive control group that, breeds, I don't know how to say that nicer, breeds slaves and benefits off those slaves. And in this day and age, I think it's crazy. I think the men who did this are actually mentally, there's some mental problems there that the Watchtower Society purposely breeds in. They train that way. They use associative Pavlovian training, which is where they take something and they pair it as bad in your mind. So, for instance, that JW broadcast, we're marked, the three of us are marked now as pretty birds that shouldn't be listened to.
Jehovah likely notices when a indigo bunting, a cardinal, or a Baltimore oriole falls to the ground. But Jesus made a significant point when he chose to use a sparrow in his illustration. Jehovah is not impressed with the beauty of one's physical appearance. You must love Jehovah your God with your whole heart, and with your whole soul, and with your whole mind, and with your whole strength. That's it. Jesus did not add, and your good looks, your good looks, your good looks, your good looks, your good looks.
And what they do with that is they choose certain words that turn off the ears of members. So
Right.
apostate is one of those words. And then they clump all real information in under that word, but that word controls their hearing ability, believe it or not. It's so their cognitive understanding is disrupted by strategic trigger words that cause them to not hear anything because they're trained very hard to shut out anything that is truthful. And that's it's tough. It is.
Now, you mentioned a second ago about you guys being labeled as three pretty birds.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to direct people to what you are referring to there? Can we do that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew I had an inkling that they would target me personally as soon as I started going public enough. Because in order to do damage control within the society, they would have to start telling everybody, don't listen to these things. And because I'm not an apostate, and I don't identify as an apostate because I was never baptized. Because of that, they needed a way to not only warn everyone away, but also remind them that they're just little sparrows. You're just plain brown little helpless sparrows. And they rely on people feeling like that. They rely on people feeling, lesser than in some way to maintain control. Because if every person started being large and colorful and acting in charge of their own life, they would have nobody left.
right. Yeah.
So,
And for folks, go watch, was it the September 2023 broadcast?
somebody sent it to me, but I think, it's the September 2023 broadcast at minute 6:40.
Yeah, so folks, go check that out and think about what we've already talked about and look what they're saying on the broadcast and then make that connection. Very important. Another thing that you mentioned, another thing you mentioned a second ago was the ages 0 through 6, getting into them mentally at that age. And now my mom didn't start studying with the witnesses until I was 6 years old.
Okay.
However, here's an experience I had. My dad was in the military, and we got shipped to Japan in 1985. Yeah. And I remember one day being on the bus, going to school, and I was thinking, and I was by myself, and I was like, oh my God, what if Armageddon hits now? How am I going to find my dad? How am I going to find my mom? I'm on this bus. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And there's no reason I was 12 at the time. And there's no reason I should have been worried about that.
Right.
And another thing, when we were in school, and I got bullied when I was in school a couple times until I fought back. But I remember just saying, "Oh, well, you know what? That's okay. You can pick on me all you want, but at Armageddon, you're gonna die."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a young kid saying this to other folks.
Yeah. So the one, I'd like to comment on that. So you weren't brought in until you were 6 years old, which means that your critical developmental ages of 0 through 6 were not affected by it. And that's a really big deal. That's actually probably why you're able to deconstruct the way that you are. Because what they do during the developmental ages is they intentionally, through repetitive training and through trauma, lots of different types of trauma, it disrupts the cognitive and critical development of children to a point that even if later on they, leave or they want to speak about it, the wiring of their brain during those very critical years of development was based on full-blown lies and coercive control. So that may be why you have a lot of, your common sense is intact, because your developmental ages were not, as born in Jehovah's Witnesses are, intentionally disrupted and laid, a foundation of pure bullshit. If your foundation as a child is like that, it's very difficult to sort later on what is reality, what should be, when you should be skeptical, what you can rely on.
I remember ladies who would just have they just had their babies.
I just want to cut in real quick.
Yep.
And I just want to say what she's saying. Trauma is very important it's a very important component for them to be able to do what they're doing. But what you have to keep in mind is trauma isn't always pain. There's different types of trauma, and they're going to find out which is the best form of trauma to use for you. That's the thing. The Watchtower knows your personality type and knows how you'll respond to this or that or whatever, because they learned it. They learned what to look for. So they cater the trauma to you because they know this will get to you. Or it could be something small like, you could have had a friend that died, but you couldn't go to the funeral. Maybe you had to work that day, or maybe the car broke down or whatever. This little tiny things like that, and that is trauma, and it adds to their control. And I mean, I just wanted to say that because she's definitely right. She's definitely right. Trauma is one of the main components.
And by the time the baby was able to, do a few things, they would always ask, "Where's Jehovah?" And teach the little baby to point up or something like that.
Right.
And so that's just part of that mental indoctrination that you're talking about. That's an example of it, correct?
It is. It is. And actually, a lot of the indoctrination and the training methods, the tactics that are used on children are cruel and unusual. They are not, similar to other religions. And I say that after having studied many different religions and their demographics and how their children are taught, and they really do handicap children in life, which is why so many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, even once they leave, they feel that they're at a disadvantage. They, it's even something like education. When your mind is taught from a very young age, from birth, to believe that the end of the world is going to come, so nothing else matters, to believe that everyone that isn't within your religion is going to die a terrible death, and then to pray for that for them. It creates, like you're saying, when you're worried about Armageddon at age 12. I hear that from victims all the time. I spoke to someone not very long ago who said that she still every night wakes up and is terrified, has really violent visions in her nightmares, Armageddon-esque. And what they did through the illustrations and through the writing was create that. They created that sense of fear, and they rely on that sense of fear, and they rely on everyone being too afraid to move forward and actually speak about it, because it's what's gotten them by for a very long time.
Yeah.
So,
well, I appreciate all that. Let's move into the next one. All right. I know that I've seen a lot of people say a lot of different things since you put your TikTok video out. So I'm going to ask you this question, and
okay.
I just want you to be as straightforward as you possibly can.
Are you sure about that? No.
I'm sure about that because, folks, I don't edit anything. Y'all know that. So, and then we'll go into something serious in a second. What is your response to those who have called you a clout chaser? TikTok, or not on, but on Twitter, you know who you are. I know who you are. A narcissist, or someone who wants to benefit financially off what you are doing and you're speaking out. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I was born with clout, so I don't need weird shit coming out of a weird ass cult about my own sexual abuse for clout. That's number one. Number two is for the people who are questioning that, I don't actually, on a very deep level, I don't blame them, because we're talking about people who are indoctrinated through lies. So once they come out of it, they want proof. They're looking critically for what they're hearing. And I can never hate on that. But as far as making money for it, no, unfortunately, this is the way that America is structured. Is if you pursue criminal charges against something, you weaken your case if you also pursue civil charges for it. So if you file a lawsuit for money against something, then in the court of law for criminal charges, they can come up and be like, she's just doing it for the money. So to eliminate all of that and to take those roadblocks out, I waived my right to a civil trial, and I waived my right to anonymity in the case, because in order to do any of that, they have you sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, which means that you cannot speak on any of the things that I'm speaking on. And the seriousness and the large scope of it, and the danger to all of the children that come across, it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not just ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. It is affecting all of the communities outside of that. And I'm not taking a gag order for any amount of money. So I will live poor and spitefully, Jimmy.
Hey, yeah, that's what I try to tell folks too with what I do. I don't do this for money. I mean, it's 1:30 on a Tuesday. I should actually be working at my job, but I was like, this is important work we're doing. we actually sacrifice a lot of our time to
Yeah.
get information out there. And when somebody wants to badmouth us or criticize us, honestly, sometimes, yeah, it does suck that they do that because they don't realize exactly how much time we actually put into
Yeah.
researching, putting videos together, and actually caring about our fellow humans.
Yeah, it really, I don't, because of where it's coming from, like I said, I don't harbor any resentment or feel any sort of way towards people that are saying that, because of the way that they were trained, and because I understand that breaking through that is incredibly difficult. I have a lot of sympathy for anybody coming out of it, and a lot of admiration for the ones that are using their own critical thinking skills. They're not swallowing anything they're handed anymore. They're not just taking everything as like, that's God's word, we better not look into it. The money thing is just doesn't even exist for me, because of everything, and it never will. Everything with the Indigo Project has made zero money, and it will continue making zero money, because in order to make money off of the sick shit that's went on, you have to agree to only say what they'll let you say, and you have to agree to never talk about the aspects of it. And by doing that, it perpetuates a constant state of repeated behaviors, generational trauma, and that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah,
So,
I know one thing that I've been trying to remind folks in the journey that I've been on is what we're all going through is a waking up process.
mhm,
And you can look at a timeline and people wake up at different spots.
right.
And so, I mean, I've been awake now since December of 2018. And so the knowledge that I've learned from then till now is going to be way more than somebody that just woke up a month ago.
Right.
And that person's going to ask a lot of questions because that's what I did when I woke up. I asked a lot of questions. And so folks have to understand, and that's one reason why I'm trying to work on compassion and not
Yeah.
go off on some people because I'm like, okay, when did you wake up? What do you know? How much research have you done? And it's a difficult road to navigate, especially like someone like me, who I'm like, it's right here. Can't you see it?
It is frustrating. It's frustrating, but see, I want everyone to unify so much, because together you're unstoppable, because you're the only ones in a very small population. I don't know if Jehovah's Witnesses know this, but they make up only 0.8% of American population. So
Yep.
so they're even smaller than the top 1%, and the other 99% of people that exist are able to see it, similar to the Children of God cult, similar to a lot of the nightmares that went on with the Church of LDS, with the Mormons, very similar to Scientology, even though that's just now starting to break nationally. It's just that the Jehovah's Witnesses build in within their system a full persecution protective system.
Absolutely.
So they are trained that it's a badge of honor to them if they're being attacked, and they are trained to view anything on the outside that is trying to protect them as an attack of their faith. And it makes it incredibly hard. It's a lot like, for, like you're saying, later stages when you've deconstructed and you've woken up and you've come out of it to a certain point, and you are looking back at everyone who's still in cages, right? They're still mentally caged.
Yep.
You want to go over and you want to be like, no, I'm opening your cage. But it's a lot like every time you try to open the cage, they're like stabbing at you from inside it,
Yeah.
because they're trained to.
Yep.
So no, going into this, I knew that aspect. And Jehovah's Witnesses are actually the only ones religion wise that do that, because again, it goes back to the way that their critical thinking and skills are disrupted, and the way that their cognitive processes during early childhood development are disrupted, because they are trained to see everyone as the enemy, and it's done very, very insidiously and very coercively. But yeah, it is frustrating. I have a lot of respect for everyone in the XJW community who is helping each other to come out of this place and trying to, I don't know, like, to me, there's so many different groups of people that are, you have your PMO, okay, who are still physically attending, but mentally they're like, wait, this is all wrong, which is the first step. And then you have your POMO, who are physically out of it and mentally out of it, but that isn't like the end game, because you have to be able to heal the right way from it, and you have to be able to get answers that you've never had your whole life, to be able to, a lot of people need to know, like, what was I following? Who was I following? How did this go so badly? And so that's another stage. And then past that, you have people like yourself that are, they're out more, and they can create a safe bridge for people that are looking to leave, and don't know how to, or are looking for truth and don't know where to find it or how to trust it. It is very, it makes me very sad every day, because the way that it's done is heartbreaking to watch. So many people try to get out of the mental prison that was created there. It's something that I studied for a long time to try and figure out what exactly was going on in that capacity.
Yeah, people really, for those that are not completely awake or still early in that process or whatever, they really don't understand how frustrating it is for folks like us who have woke up,
Yeah.
see the bigger picture. It is frustrating. So, but we continue on, because you never know what you're going to say that may flip that switch and be like, that's what Salena was talking about. That's what Jimmy was talking about.
Right.
And so, so your TikTok videos, they were geared more to the public. Is that correct?
That is true.
Okay. All right. So why do you feel that it's important for the general public to know more about what Watchtower is all about?
Because of the way that they present themselves. So one of their, one of the biggest defenses that's used is, this is happening in all the churches. It's not just the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yep.
And I want to nip that shit in the bud right here, because after studying as many churches as I have, and after visiting as many churches as I have, after talking to a lot of clergy administration in many different religions, the Jehovah's Witnesses, what they're doing is presenting to the public one thing, and then putting the public in danger through what they're actually doing behind the scenes, which is child trafficking. And that's something that
more of that.
Yeah. So it is very important, because if we were to talk about this from the capacity of something that wasn't Jehovah's Witness, I don't know, pick any other hated group in the world, like pick any group. And I were to say, there's this boys club that's running, they're committing massive crimes against children, and you won't know it. The communities that they're placed in don't know it, because they're dressed up in suits and ties, and they sound like they're just preaching like generalized, generic brand Christianity. But that's not what is going on here, because the general public is being made aware of the danger that is there for their own children. Because it's one thing to run, something as horrific as child sex trafficking out in, somewhat out in the open. I don't know how else to describe that. Like, it's another to hide it under God and to hide it under Jesus and to hide it from the general public in a way that their children become prey. I don't, for the general public, it is easier for them to understand that there's an extremist group that presents itself as generic Christians, and underneath it or above it or wherever you want to call it, they are systematically trafficking child rapists through using their network of churches.
I wanted to stop there to touch on what she's saying about that.
Yeah.
So I think this is the dark stuff that a lot of XJW channels don't cover. They don't want to believe it. A lot of XJWs, I think, are still in denial about this, but she's telling the truth. That's what I think. I think that the Jehovah's Witness religion, like I said earlier, I think they're probably bigger than Epstein, to be honest. The network that they have, and if they are connected with the CIA, then they're more untouchable than say Epstein was.
Well,
But
you have to keep in mind. I don't mean to cut you off, but you have to keep in mind. Um, there's a 17-year-old girl who was married and baptized, and somehow she wound up in Epstein's bed. Now she comes from a blue-collar working class family, and Epstein is a billionaire. So you have to ask yourself, how did this girl get connected up to Epstein? And there's only one way, is if someone brought her to Epstein. And they keep talking about this Epstein list, this list, release the names. I guarantee you, when they finally do release the names, somewhere in those 99, 100, 150 names, there's going to be one name that's not going to sound familiar, not going to be famous, not going to be a celebrity, but he's going to be connected to the Watchtower. And that's what I'm waiting for. Because there's no way a 17-year-old Jehovah's Witness girl who's married at the time would wind up in Epstein's bed. Epstein was having sex with this girl, and then when she aged out at the sweet old age of 19 or 20, she started working for him. So you have to ask yourself, how can a girl, very sheltered background of a Jehovah's Witness, wind up in Epstein's bed? And the only way that's possible is if she was introduced to Epstein, or she was placed in Epstein's environment. Either way, you can see a very close association with the Watchtower, and Epstein is there. And I'm that's why I'm waiting for it to come out like everybody else, because I know there's one name in that list of people that people are going to run through the names, and they're going to say, oh, who's this guy's name? Well, he's not important. I'll move on to the next one. But that's going to be the name that ties the Watchtower to Epstein. Mark my words. And then a light will turn on, and you'll go, oh, wow, it was right in front of my face. But yeah, they're trafficking.
and one other thing too is that for XJWs to have a hard time comprehending that this is what you were part of, or an organization is doing this, if you can see the satanic images, which I have plenty of videos on my channel that break down the satanic images, but if you can see the satanic side of things, sexual child abuse is something that's a part of satanic worship.
Yeah, it is.
Right. So again, if you see all the satanic stuff they've been doing, then it shouldn't surprise you to think that, or to know that they are doing sexual child trafficking of children, because that's part of satanic ritual abuse, satanic worship.
Yeah. See,
And I just, one more thing I want to say is, why would an organization be putting satanic symbols and these sexual child images unless they're involved in it?
Well,
because
see that,
it's all in the magazines and books. It's right
yeah,
there.
yeah. Because you have to keep in mind that every time these kids are sexually abused, it's a sacrifice to their God. And that's what the abuse is. It's really a sacrifice to Moloch or whatever. But
Mhm.
that's what it's about. And you know, they need that energy or the power or whatever they think they get from it. But that's why, if you notice, only certain children are sexually abused and others aren't. You'll have 5 kids in a family, 2 will be abused, but 3 won't be abused. They look for certain specific children to abuse.
Right.
Using, you know what I'm saying, using
Yeah.
their headship in their governing body, or whatever, you want to call those guys up there. So because of that, because of it being hidden the way that it is and being hidden in plain sight, the danger lurking for normal families and for children of normal families that aren't part of the religion is incredibly high. And that's kind of what, that's
And
one of the bigger
one thing,
aspects.
sorry about that, sorry to interrupt, but one thing that, a lot of people are like, well, where's the proof of this? Or, where's the, look at the subliminal messages in the artwork. Look at the um,
Yep.
pedo symbols that are
Hmm.
in their artwork. They're telling you what they're doing right there.
Right. And more than that, for people that are looking for proof, are you talking about proof that they're running child sex trafficking inside of it?
You know what? With that said, let's just go ahead and go that route. Um,
Okay.
here's a number 19. Here's a viewer's comment to our previous conversation. And would you care to respond? This is what the viewer said. When you interview her, can you ask questions to get to the point about what's going on at Watchtower? What is this child sex trafficking ring in Watchtower? Who is involved? To the point questions.
Okay.
So
Um,
that's what they asked.
so let me get to the point then.
Mhm. I mean,
So
that was a, yeah. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna put
you
that
don't
in
need to
there.
look very far. You don't need to look very deep for proof that they are trafficking children. You do need to look at what Roger Bentley showed, that the letter that he showed where he said um, something along the lines of, well, they recommended Jonathan Kendrick. They said that he took a special interest in the youth. Okay. You take something like that where the governing body has a known child rapist, and then they send out a letter, they relocate him to a new location, and they send out a letter and they specify, now they know what he's doing, they specify that he's taken a special interest in the children and that they highly recommend him. The question here is, for anyone who's trying to find their own proof, do they send out letters when they relocate brothers to different congregations that recommend them for other things? Do they send out a letter saying, we recommend Brother Kendrick, he's taken a special interest in the elderly, put him in car groups with the elderly? No, they don't.
Holy crap! I never thought about that.
Yeah. So when we're looking at it being hidden in plain sight, it's so hidden in plain sight that they made a bogus ass documentary with Roger Bentley, who is a trafficker, who is my personal childhood. And I'm not going to get too far into that because I'll go off the fucking rails, Jimmy.
Yeah, we might touch a little bit that on a little
Yeah.
second,
If
but
you look at what they're doing on both sides of the coin, you don't have to look far. So child trafficking is often looked at, as a general term for moving children around to prostitute them out.
mhm.
But the Watchtower Society reverses that and they move around the predators so that they have new pools of children unsuspecting. And they don't do that unintentionally. It's not being done as a one off. They're recommending child predators to the new congregation as being great with the youth. If it were innocuous and not a ring that was going on, they would be sending out letters for every guy, every family that moves congregations. They would be saying, we recommend so-and-so. He's taken a special interest in widowed sisters. Right? You know what I'm saying?
I get it. Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Let me pause there because didn't that touch on something you said about the letters of recommendation, how sometimes they do specify when they write letters and move brothers around if they're good with children or something like that?
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and you might want to edit it out later. I don't know, but it's true, and she just verified it. The Watchtower needs pedophiles. Okay, they need pedophiles. I'm not going to tell you why, but they need pedophiles. That's why they're concerned more with the pedophile than with the victim. And that's why when there's an incident at a congregation, the first thing that they do is move them somewhere else. And instead of warning the congregation, they do like she says, they recommend them because they need pedophiles. I won't say why now, but that's how you know the Watchtower is trafficking, because they're more concerned with the pedophile. And in the average Jehovah's Witness, they'll say, oh, well, we forgave the brother and it's okay. You know, that's the problem. You know, being a Christian is dangerous because you set yourself up for a lot of shit. And they presume upon your forgiving nature, or they hope that the brothers will persuade you to, you know, be forgiving and let something go. No. It's a machine. It's a factory. They pour in little children, turn the handle, and grind them out into something else. But yeah, it's and see, the thing about it is just like she said, it's done out in the open, so far out in the open that it's hidden.
I just want to re-emphasize what I said earlier to those who think this is too hard to handle or too hard to believe, is that again, say 70% of the congregations could have not been doing this stuff because it's hidden deep within the organization. So it might only have been 30% that's doing this, but that's still the purpose of this organization. It's covering up what they're actually involved in. Like that's their main purpose. Has nothing
Well,
to do with Jehovah God or Jesus or any of that. That's
did you ever
all. Oh, go ahead.
did you ever stop to think why I don't know if they're doing it so much now, but they were visiting the prisons and supposedly, you know, carrying the preaching work into the prisons. You know, did you ever stop to think how and why that is? Who they want to recruit? They want to, you know, they want to get to the pedophile before he gets out, indoctrinate him, and then he gets out, and then the brothers who've been studying with him in the prison can direct him to whatever congregation, and then it starts the whole cycle all over again. Because like I said, they need and want pedophiles. All the children that have been sexually abused in the Watchtower, it's not an accident. They were targeted on purpose.
So if you're strategically protecting predators and you are systematically moving them across state borders, moving them town to town, giving them shelter, aiding and abetting them, not allowing anyone to report them to the police under ecclesiastical privilege, you are no longer a church. You are running a child sex trafficking ring. And that is how it is to the outside world. And it is that shitty. And I my heart always hurts, you know, having this conversation, because so many Jehovah's Witnesses have dedicated their life to like living a Christian life. And the disconnect there is that they rely on everyone who are rank and file members to present as great, friendly Christians. And by doing that, it makes it just nearly, not totally impossible, but nearly impossible to actually talk about what is behind the front of religion, what's actually being run. And so I know that when I went after, Tony Morris, whose name is Tony Esposito, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just lots of little details that everybody is leaving out of everything and should be totally opening up that wound to be cleaned out.
That's a new one. You got the viewers going, what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
His
I didn't know that.
Esposito. And as far as further proof that it's being done, other than myself being trafficked across state borders as a child, other than witnessing my own sister be trafficked, other than witnessing money change hands for us, I would encourage everyone to look into how many people have experienced CSA, because like I said, when I started the Indigo Project, I was kind of looking at, is this just Jehovah's Witnesses, or is it all the other churches? From my perspective, I wanted to know. And what I found is that, nope, the Catholics, the Baptists, the Protestants, the Episcopalians, the Methodists, they are not sending letters from congregation to congregation recommending child predators, saying that they're good with the kids. That's a very blunt way, but it is because it's so, and Roger Bentley is fully aware of this as well. So that's what makes him acting like he doesn't know what's going on even more upsetting, because he's not only trying to gaslight the victims, he's also trying to gaslight you, everyone else, all other men. And that mentality is something that they bank on. They bank on the men of the congregation staying in, feeling castrated, essentially, feeling that they can't do anything, feeling that they're being chained by their position inside of a boys club. If you can't speak against an elder, if you're a ministerial servant, if you're just a publisher, you're irregular with your hours. The type of shame that they create is what has really made it so impossible specifically for the men to do the very thing that normally, biologically would be protecting their children.
Exactly.
And so when I was looking at this, I really wanted to know, how the hell are they disrupting the biological instincts of men and women as heavily as they are, to the point that their children are just sitting ducks for abuse? And a lot of it has to do with the shame. A lot of it has to do with the hierarchy, trying to climb. You know how it is. Like, even as a young kid, you're struggling to be cool enough to run the mics. You're struggling to get to the point where you give your first talk in the main hall and not in the side hall. And because they create this fake club, this dynamic with titles and a hierarchy and everything, it causes men to naturally fear for their position versus do what is normal for them. So outside of the cult, men are, they're protective. They're protecting the women and the children. Inside of it, the society strives to make sure that men do not do anything, that they are simply labor. They do not get an education, which makes sure that they stay in labor. They then make sure that their jobs are through the hall, through the friends, through the congregation members. And then they give them a headship crown so that they feel that they're in charge of their family, but not in charge of protecting their family. That's Jehovah's job. And when you do that, you create such a dichotomy that it doesn't allow for men to fully develop the right way.
Emasculation of men.
Yeah.
And it's not just the Watchtower doing that. We can see that being done on a global scale. Just look at society right now.
Yeah, there's a lot there that, well, that's because, you know, everybody knows if all of the men stand up for what's going on, they're done.
Exactly.
They're done.
Exactly.
Like, you're talking about a very small percentage of old, rich people that, if every man is not, being controlled through these boys clubs, they would be doing what comes naturally to them. They would be protecting. They would be seeking justice. They would, be acting in ways that are more normal, and they don't want that. That would disrupt everything for them. So
you're on point with that. I can totally agree with that. All right, since we're on that particular topic, and you've already said, would you identify Watchtower as a globally organized criminal syndicate? And if so, you've already cited some examples, but can you think of any more that would?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about, I think at its foundation, it was a criminal syndicate. I know that Russell is he's the front guy on who created the Jehovah's Witnesses. But in my understanding, William H. Conley was a publisher here who needed free slave labor. And that's how Bethel came to be. So they changed William H. Conley.
Okay.
Conley.
Okay.
So there's a lot of aspects of it that were criminal from the start. The foundations of it are criminal. The stepping away from the psychology of it, a lot of the crimes that have been committed in the United States, as far as massive scams, massive Ponzi schemes, massive money laundering schemes, those are just the nonviolent ones. If you look at, what's really been done and hidden, it's massively Jehovah's Witnesses that have done it. Right. And the fact that the mainstream media has been just like bombarded with crap that's kept it from coming out the way that it is, and that if anything happens, they rely on the same like 3 defense mechanisms, which is they were no longer a Jehovah's Witness. They faded out. We don't know that guy. We fired him and relocated him. He's no longer part of this organization, a la Toni Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Or they are looking to show that it's a one-off, that somebody just went cuckoo cuckoo, and it's they don't know that person. How could they do something so terrible? But all of that is crap.
Yeah, and it's not just it's not just something Watchtower does. That's done on a political scale too. I mean, if you've got one of your guys that's not doing what the big boys club wants you to do, they're going to smear you. They're going to disengage from you, and they're just going to put you out to pasture.
Right.
It's the same tactic. And that's why I've tried to get folks to understand or start looking into the connection between what's done on the global or the geopolitical side versus what's being done in Watchtower. It's the same thing. It really is. Yeah. So
it is a lot easier to understand America if you grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's see what's the next one. We'll go into that in a second. let's go to your childhood for a second,
Mhm.
and you can speak to what you feel comfortable with. What was your experience and involvement in the Watchtower organization as a child and as a young adult?
So I was born in to a second generation Jehovah's Witness mom, and my father was a Roman Catholic convert. He was not born in. So I had a cultural upbringing that was different than a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses because half of my family is Roman Catholic. And my experience was born in. Sexual abuse began at 6 months old, and it's terrible.
Oh my
That's
God,
why it's okay.
I can't even freaking imagine. Go ahead.
Well, so yeah, so 6 months old, my father in a car group out in service with Roger Bentley and another elder openly told them that he was raping his infant daughter. And my childhood was incredibly brutal. It was a very brutal upbringing. Um, and then when I was about, 11 or so, my mother took us and she ran away with us. She ran to Pennsylvania. We moved out in the middle of nowhere for about 9 months. She was terrified that my father would find us again. And then he did, because Roger Bentley and a number of other congregation elders assisted him in finding us using the Jehovah's Witness network. And so when we're talking about it being, when you ask that question about like, are you clout chasing? Are you jumping on board? No, this has been my whole life, and it will continue to be my life until there is resolve that protects it from happening again to further people. So we ran away. We got to a congregation in Pennsylvania. That congregation was made fully aware of everything my father was doing and had done. And rather than assisting in any way, we were labeled dirty, soiled, bad association. It was a really disgusting, looking at it as an adult and looking at all of the men and women who, had kids come into their hall that were knew that they were with a single mother, because my mother never lost faith in Jehovah. She lost faith in the men that were running the corrupt organization. And that has, I don't know. It's pretty bad. All of it, as
Yeah.
far as my childhood, is pretty bad. A lot of different things. The fact that all the elders knew what was going on, they did absolutely nothing about it. And then even further than that, they sat with my mother, laughed at her when she said she would be leaving, laughed when she said she was going to the police. Their mental state made them believe that they were completely untouchable.
Right.
And when you get to a point where someone is in some type of, whether you want to call it a spiritual psychosis or you want to call it heavy training and indoctrination, whatever it is that made all of these men believe that they could do all of these things and never have anything happen for it. That's pretty crazy. That's the part where, when I'm talking about the general public now understands, but didn't before, that
Right.
the level of violence that Jehovah's Witnesses will go to protect their own back, to protect themselves so that no one knows what's really going on, it's paired with such crazy conditioning tactics that when it goes awry, okay, you don't have like a guy driving to a bar and drinking a few beers and lamenting life. You have a guy like the shooter at the Discovery Channel. Like the Discovery Channel building had a shooter run in and try and mow down a bunch of people. that was a Jehovah's Witness. It wasn't a Jehovah's Witness that left. It wasn't a Jehovah's Witness that faded. It was a Jehovah's Witness who was indoctrinated and trained in violence the same way. So there is a moment, you know, where cognitive dissonance breaks. And that's, you know, cognitive dissonance is the idea that you can hold two opposing views and they can exist at the same time. So they rely on cognitive dissonance. Many predators rely on cognitive dissonance. That's why a lot of child predators are teachers, they're coaches, they're priests, they're clergy, because on the front, they're doing all these great things for humanity. And on the back end, they're doing horrific things. And if you're at a point with cognitive dissonance that you can no longer separate, you know what I'm saying? You exist fully without acknowledging what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it really does create a very dangerous situation. One of the deaths that I'm thinking about right now, one of the crimes was a father who killed and cut the throat of his 12-year-old daughter. And then while being taken away in custody, said that he wasn't worried about going to jail, that he had done it as a sacrifice for Jehovah and he would be in the paradise earth. And when you're talking about the subliminal stuff, the violence paired with the extremist training, you're looking at a lot of people who are not in any way being governed for how severe the psychosis that they are intentionally put into is. Because when that psychosis snaps, you get all the different crimes that have, you know, peppered the United States. And a lot of them are incredibly...
Seen that.
What's that?
We've seen that. What was it? A woman killed her whole family?
Yeah, in Virginia, she did.
And she did it because she thought that was the best way to get everybody to the new system. I mean,
right.
Wow.
Right. So what they rely on is that they rely on going, we don't know those people. We don't know why they went crazy, but they intentionally create the system to make them like that. And then as soon as they go off the deep end, they then pull away and say like, oh, they weren't really one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But in reality,
that plausible deniability.
Right, that's the plausible deniability. Yeah, they have created the crimes that I have that have not only come across my desk, but I've spoken at length with victims of, are too horrific and too gruesome to even talk about on anything mainstream. Even in talking with law enforcement about the types of crimes that were being committed against babies and children, there was a lot of people in shock, because if you look at the types of crimes, for instance, the woman in Texas who killed her 3-week-old baby and ate it raw, okay, that is not a normal crime. That is not a crime that's an indicator that something very, very deep and dark, happened to her, occurred throughout her life, because the level of violence is very concerning. And it has been concerning to me for about 5 years now. I started looking into it heavily about 5 years ago. So, no matter how much you say like, oh, this happened, there's nuts in every religion. There are nuts in every religion. However, if 90% of the nuts are doing most of the crimes, and they're doing them at a level that is shocking even to law enforcement, that requires what I consider to be an in-depth study. Like, I needed to look into what was causing this type of psychosis that's allowing this to happen on such a large scale and go undetected.
Yeah. Wow. I hope people are digesting this and really opening their minds about it because this stuff exists. As hard as it
Yeah.
is, as hard as it is to want to believe this stuff, it exists, and that's the biggest thing people need to understand there. All right, so we are sitting about. Let's see, where are we at? We're almost to an hour. Got a few more, and let's try to wrap up at about an hour and a half here. Um, Tony Morse. There's a lot of questions about Mr. Morris. Can you describe the connection between your father and Tony Morris?
Um, this is kind of one of those things I was telling you on the phone before. I may have described it a lot more, but right now I can't really describe it very
Okay,
well
that's fine.
publicly. I will say that Roger Bentley is fully aware of the connection. In fact, him and my father um, exchanged videos making fun of some circuit overseers that were giving talks on child sexual abuse. So the level at which I'm trying to tell you is that, for rank and file members, all bullshit aside, the men on top of this are laughing at you all the time. They're laughing at the COs, they're laughing at the POs, they're laughing at the governing body. They're laughing at everybody who is blindly following this because above it, it's a joke. And I don't know how to say that without it sounding, brutal, but it is brutal. And so, yeah, my father, Tony Morris, was the CO in Pennsylvania. I can say that. And that's probably all I could say at this point
Okay,
on
that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Tony Morris.
And
But
folks that are watching this, please understand why Salena is saying what she's saying when she can't speak to something. Give her that respect because I just feel like folks really need to understand that.
well,
Um,
like I was saying, I understand from their perspective why they're looking for factual base and evidence. I mean,
I do too.
but on the same level, the other side of me that is not, everyone isn't entitled to all of the information. What I choose to share is what I choose to share. And I have to, like I described, I did refuse any sort of NDA. I am sharing as much as I possibly can that will be used for protecting children and families. But Tony Morris
Go ahead.
never
Sorry.
Tony Morris doesn't exist for me the way that Tony Morris exists for everybody else. Tony Morris is just one of a bunch of creeps up in Brooklyn that personally have ensured that my life has been a series of unfortunate events. So,
Let me just take a break there again. So when she said how Toni Morris has been ensured that her life has been a series of unfortunate events, how do you relate to that with your knowledge on what she's saying?
I try to have a certain amount of etiquette and respect for your channel and your audience.
I'll edit anything that's too blunt, don't worry.
There's a scripture in the Bible that says, all that's left is just I I have a real hard time hearing about people who've gone through shit like this, and I gotta sit back and just hear it, and I can't do nothing about it. And for me, the kind of guy I am and the kind of things I've been through, I've always been a direct action kind of person, meaning if you got a beef or a problem with me, you got to come to me and you got to settle it. Getting somebody else or a third party to do your dirty work, no, that's not going to solve anything. And I know they think they're powerful because they figure, oh, we can pull strings and affect someone's life and they won't even know we did it. Ha ha ha. I don't work like that. If I have a problem with you, I will come for you. And as far as I'm concerned, these men have all just earned death, as far as I'm concerned. That's it. Now, I'm not saying I would kill them.
Let me ask you, when she talks about how her life has been a series of unfortunate events due to Toni Morris, like, can you break that down for my audience on what she means by that about a series of unfortunate events, like as far as what you can imagine how she's being attacked or what she's going through for her to say that?
I can tell you what it is. You come home and your garbage cans are turned over. And you ask your neighbors how this happened, but they don't know. You could you walk in your house and you listen to your answer machine and you have an angry message from a friend and you're thinking, I haven't talked to you in a week or two, but they're pissed off because they think they talked to you. They think, whatever. You get in your car and you go down the freeway and all of a sudden there's a red car behind you and you change lanes and let him pass, but he changes lanes and gets behind you. And he's trying to piss you off. So then you tap your brakes to brake check him a little bit. And he backs off a little bit, but then he comes back on and does it again. You go into a store and your credit cards don't work. You call the bank, they don't know why they don't work. They just know that there's a glitch in the system. Then all of a sudden you walk back out to your car and the police are there because you fit the description of somebody who stole a purse and you're hassled, threatened by cops. Or, you buy something on Amazon and it's 2-day shipping, but then 2 days go by, the package is on your doorstep. That's because the package was already stolen from you. Or maybe, it's an important letter that you're waiting for in the mail. You're waiting for it days on end. And the envelope comes, but the letter that was inside the envelope is not there. So you don't know what was said or what was written. And you call and say, I got the envelope, but I didn't get your letter. And then the person on the other end is, well, that's crazy. If you got the envelope, you should have the letter. So they think that you're trying to run some kind of scam or some kind of game on them. Then all of a sudden you decide, well, maybe I just want to move to another area. I'm gonna put my car on Facebook Marketplace and sell my car, and then I'm gonna move across town or I'm gonna move to another state or whatever. And you got a hot car, and everybody would love to have this car, but nobody touches it. Nobody offers you anything. Nobody even calls about the car. And you're thinking, well, maybe they're not interested, but you're not realizing that nobody is seeing the ad. You just think they seen the ad and that they're not interested. And then you realize that some force seems to be trying to isolate you, make you by yourself. So then, you decide to go check up at the hospital. As your 6-month checkup, you go into the hospital and you end up waiting for hours on end. And then you go up to the front desk and say, what about my 2 o'clock appointment? It's 3 o'clock. I should have been seen already. But then they tell you, oh, didn't that other nurse tell you? We canceled it and we rescheduled you.
So that they can say that they can have plausible deniability and they can say, oh, we didn't do anything to you. You have bad luck. That had nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to you. You have bad luck. That had nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to you. You have bad luck. That had nothing to do with us. But all the while, they're in the background pulling the strings and making it happen.
Let me ask you
Oh,
this. Have you ever had your food tampered with or things in
yes,
your house?
yes. I don't eat anything unless it comes in a can. All that I cut up McDonald's and all that crap. I won't eat anything unless it comes in a can. Now, a lot of people say, well, you're paranoid. Well, there was a guy in New York who allowed two elders to come visit him. He was in possession of certain information that he was going to make public, and the Watchtower didn't want it made public. Long story short, this guy was poisoned. The coroner opened and shut the case so quickly. Well, that's because the Watchtower had made it clear that they didn't want this investigated too much. And see, that's the thing. Most people think, oh, the Watchtower is warm and fuzzy. The rank and file are good people. Everybody else, fuck them. They're not good people.
Now let me bring up another point. I was gonna save this for the end of the video, but I think that it's appropriate now because you mentioned isolation and you mentioned like you noticed that there was a force trying to isolate you as you're describing probably what she means by that. So I want you to give my audience your honest opinion and basically assessment and just what they need to take into consideration. So when I first started looking into Salena Vertolomo recently, what surprised me, I'm not saying this in a negative way because I appreciate all my subscribers and we don't always have to agree on things, but there was a certain amount of comments that right away were just talking bad and like you shouldn't trust her. And one comment was trying to like convince me to not believe what she's saying. And this one person had even made it a point to say, well, maybe Tony Moore stepped down because he had a sick wife to take care of. And I was kind of wondering, like, why are certain people trying to convince me that I shouldn't trust her? And I just felt like, why does everybody hate her so much? So I started to investigate. I started to ask other people, like, am I missing something? Like, is there something that I'm missing? Like, what is it that makes everybody say she's controlled opposition and she's working for Watchtower and you can't trust her and she's a liar? Not like, because what she's saying about Tony Morris, it makes sense. So I'm just wondering, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something really obvious that she did that's questionable. And to my surprise, even when I went around asking people, nobody really had a
An
really good
answer.
reason why she's hated the way she's hated. So I'm not saying everything she says is true. Anyone can tell white lies or exaggerate. Maybe she's exaggerating on certain things. I don't know. But why does it everybody seem to like to hate her? And it seems like a lot of it is from the XJW community itself, which is like, so it almost seems like something has been orchestrated to turn everybody against her. So when her name comes up, it seems to be negative, negative, negative. And again, I'll look at all evidence. So if somebody shows me something powerful to say, hey, this proves that she's lying and that she's working for Watchtower, I'll be happy to examine it, but nobody is showing me anything. And some of the excuses that I got was simply because she disappeared. So maybe she's control position because you know what, she was supposed to be in other engagements and she's supposed to be working with other XJWs, and then she kind of just left people hanging and disappeared. And so then I'm thinking, okay, so just because she disappeared, that means that she's control position. What about maybe she disappeared because she's missing, right? What about that? Like, why is that not an option? Because you got option number one. Okay, she disappeared because she's control position. Okay, that's option one. Option two, maybe she was told by legal people to step out of the limelight, maybe because of legal cases against something. But if that's the case, she could still text people she was in contact with. So I know people who say they had her personal phone number and she vanished with them too. So I'm like, okay, even if legal people told her don't do any more videos on social media, she could still talk to people. She could tell people, hey, I can't make videos anymore. But for her to just like vanish, like leave people hanging, and I know like three different groups of people, not groups of people, but three different scenarios, three different people who've all say that they were in contact with her and she suddenly just stopped responding. So what kind of concerns me, I'm not saying this to be rude, but like sometimes I feel like I have to be blunt to get the hard truth out. Sometimes the truth hurts,
Yeah.
right? It's like when we were waking up for Watchtower. So I'm not saying this to be rude, but sometimes the truth hurts. I have to put this out there to the XJWs. You can't be morons with certain things. And I'm sorry to have to be blunt when I say that. I'm really not saying to attack anybody, but if someone turns up missing who's gone on record saying they were being stalked, harassed, somebody who tried to burn down their house there, why is that not an option to say maybe she's missing?
I feel dead inside. You're not the first servant of Jehovah to feel that way. Mephibosheth evidently felt that way. He too was crippled in both feet. King David had just honored him by promising to give him property and the privilege of eating his meals with the king. Notice how Mephibosheth felt about himself at 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 8. What is your servant, that you have turned your attention to a dead dog like me? He did not have a high opinion of himself. It sounds like low self-esteem, doesn't it? If you have a physical impairment or defect, you're not dead. To a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog like me. Jesus did not add, and your good looks, your good looks, your good looks, your good looks, your good looks.
Which is the indigo bunting, which is the indigo bunting, which is the indigo bunting.
Was it an indigo bunting? Was it an indigo bunting? Was it an indigo bunting?
Like, what is going on through the XJW community that nobody is thinking she's missing? Oh, she has to be controlled opposition because she's gone. Like, and I'm not saying that she is missing, that there is foul play. I hope she's okay, but I'm like, why do people jump to controlled opposition and they can't trust her because she does? How about what if she's missing? That's just what I want to know. Like, you know, I can't say she's not controlled opposition, right? Maybe I'm wrong and she is. I can't say that maybe she's just a jerk and just decided to blow everybody off. I don't know that, but you see, because I do have that unique experience with the whole harassment thing, the organized harassment thing. I understand something that you said, John. I understand when you said that you noticed there was like a group trying to isolate you. So the way I understand the system is when you get attacked or targeted in this type of sophisticated system, I like to say, it's a very sophisticated system. The idea is to try to isolate you. So the idea is to try to set up things to turn people against you. And people who are involved may not be conscious of it. They could just be playing along with the games that are being set forth. It's sort of like, for example, when you leave Watchtower and everybody cuts you off and calls you an apostate, they don't realize they're running a program. They're being programmed to behave that way. So all these people attacking Salena, I'm not saying they're in on it, but like there could be some sort of a systematic thing working behind the scenes to cause the XJWs to turn against her and not like her and all attack her. And then when I mentioned her name in a video, people are right away like attacking her. Well, that's perfect if there is follow play, it's perfect if somebody brings up her name and the response is attack her. Like, oh, don't trust her, don't listen to her. Why is nobody worried about where she's at?
Well,
So I just want, because when you said the thing about the isolation, what you understand from what you've been through, what you're aware of, what do you think that the XJWs need to be aware of if she just went missing and nobody can necessarily verify what's going on? What are some other possibilities that you think?
the only possibility that makes sense to me is you have to keep in mind she was on the verge of filing a case with an attorney, and then she started withdrawing videos, and then she disappeared. So what that tells me, or the way my mind sees it, is she is in hiding. She's not necessarily foul play, not yet, but she's in hiding because keep in mind, there is a lawsuit that's been filed against the governing body and against Tony Morris, who's not a part of the governing body anymore, but Tony Morris's name is on the document. And she's now disappeared. And all that tells me is she's in hiding. That someone has advised her or told her, until such time as we have the first court date or until we take depositions or whatever, you're going to cool your heels somewhere and be in hiding. I say that because you said you emailed this gentleman who's interviewing her and asked his permission if you can use the video clip, and he said yes. I do not believe for 1 second that he is not in contact with her. I believe.
I was going to say, let me just backtrack. So this interview is about a year and a half old.
Okay.
So it's old, and he actually was one of the people that told me that she blew him off too. That like they were supposed to do a second interview, and she stopped communicating with him also.
Well,
So
yeah.
so this is an old interview. That's the thing. It's very old.
My money says she's still in hiding because she of all people knows how the Watchtower works. They let a couple of years go by, wait till your name is not, so hot anymore or so talked about or mentioned, and then they settle up, and it could be that. That's why I'm saying I'm, thinking she's either worried in hiding and doesn't know who to trust or whatever, or she has been advised to, sit on this for a while, just, be low key until we get the evidence stacked up, the depositions, the whole bit, because it's a lot going to court. I mean, we were trying to fast track our case and get to court as soon as possible. And we managed to get a court date soon. But when you file a federal case, the first thing they want to do is push the date off for 6, 8, 9 months, you know, because the courts are backlogged. I requested that we get into court sooner because I knew we had issues that had to be dealt with expediently. But yeah, I'm she's not, I wouldn't say this foul play, but I would say, she's in hiding, because the Watchtower is very vindictive. If you embarrass them and make them look bad, you better be a tough motherfucker because they're gonna try to come after you. And they're gonna use all those techniques that I just described to fuck with your life.
So that they can say that they can have plausible deniability, and they can say, oh, we didn't do anything to you. You have bad luck. That had nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to you. You have bad luck. That had nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to you. You have bad luck. That had nothing to do with us. But all the while, they're in the background pulling the strings and making it happen.
Myself, it doesn't bother me because, in the long run, if you can't knock on my door and tell me we got a problem, then you're nothing I got to worry about. You see, you're just a punk. And you can bully somebody on Tuesday, you can bully somebody on Wednesday, but you can't bully here. You come here and you want to fuck with me, it's one of two choices. That's just how, my mind works. One of two choices. Either we're going to talk or we're going to dance. And that's why they treat me like nuclear material. They needle me and fuck with me every now and then, but they always make sure that, they got a back door. But, in Selena's case, who knows? She didn't have that. She's a woman, she's by herself, and that's what the Watchtower likes to do. They like to take advantage of women, obviously, and that's their whole bullying tactics. If you're a single mother like her mother was, and by yourself, they don't take you seriously. They don't care. Like I said, I allegedly I have to use that word. I believe the Watchtower's been implicated in several people's murders. There's just too much paperwork out there, but nobody has connected the dots. But it would stand to reason that somebody who's invested in Raytheon and Lionsgate and Lionsgate Films and the Rand Corporation and all these military contractors, like I said, the governing body, um, they're protected by an ex-military. These security guys, some of them are ex-military. That's they don't say it, but that's what they're doing. They're getting protection from ex-military because they are afraid of a lot of things. They have done a lot of things.
But one more thing about Selena thing. I hope you're right. I hope that your theory is right that she's in hiding rather than foul play. But I just want to put it out there for everybody listening to this is that don't just take it lightly that she's disappeared and think it's because she's controlled our position. That doesn't quite fit the profile that, there could be something to be concerned with. And if she is in hiding, that's still a concern that she's in hiding because that means people are after her. So I just want to put that out there
Yeah.
that the XJW community shouldn't be so quick to turn against her unless there's really a valid reason. Um, but going back to when you mentioned about like things in your house or your food being tampered with, this is just how I understand that system works, is that you got, I would call like more like the boneheads that will follow you around. They can be private investigators, they can be neighborhood watch people, whoever they are. Like they'll have the people that you overtly see and they think they're James Bond. So they may, they may think, oh, they're doing the justice. They need to watch you because you're such a dangerous person, not understanding that they're being told to do overtly just to get under your skin. It's not, it's like it's all games, because they
Yeah,
want you to see it. But this is
I,
what I
fir-
want to say though.
I firmly, yeah, I firmly believe that. A lot of them, there's two
Yeah.
kinds of people in gang
Mm,
stalking: the ones that don't know what they're doing
mm.
and the ones that do.
So this is what I'm getting at is when it comes to things in your house, such as poison in your food and things like that, those some of those boneheads that think that they're like James Bond and are doing good for the country, they have no idea that while they are following you around, that some other people, such as maybe Freemasons, that's where
Are,
you could get that involved,
are
are going
following.
to are going to go into your house and do stuff while they're so that's saying they don't know that's going on.
Yeah,
They don't understand the way the whole system works. But that's the thing when they're following you, they are not watching your house.
yeah.
But then somebody else who maybe is watching your house will allow these other people to go in and do stuff, and that's when you'll notice things like your food being messed with or things like that.
Are
Um,
your furniture being moved around?
yeah,
You know,
exactly. So when Selena, and again, she's not touching on everything, but I can tell her language. So when she's saying like how Tony Moore's made sure that I forget how she said it, that basically every day is going to be a problem or something like that. These are the type of things that happen in this type of situation. So like she's going to be dealing with a lot of look harassing things that she's probably not going to speak on because again, it's designed to make you look paranoid if you open your mouth.
yeah,
Um, and that's probably why she's not aware that it's a bigger problem in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community and Jehovah's Witness community than she's aware of, because most of them won't talk about it.
It is, he's elevated to an anointed, all these guys that are anointed and felt untouchable in what they were doing. Uh, they're they're on my radar. They've all been on my radar for a very long time. And I think that the thing that most people don't understand is that the type of men that claim that they're anointed by God and then use their power to hurt children are
Yeah, there's a special place.
they're looking to meet Jesus real fast, Jimmy.
Yeah, there's a special place for those folks like that. So would you say a viewer would like to know how many governing body members are corrupt? I would actually say all of them
Correct.
personally. And are they involved in what you were saying that Toni Morris is guilty of as well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that's pretty simple.
It
Yeah.
is because when something is systematically, it's orders given, right? And every man has the option to look at those orders and say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem like religion. This seems like child sex trafficking. This seems like I personally am going to help this child rapist go to a new kingdom hall and have a new set of families to abuse. Yeah, in fact, I can't speak too heavily on that to respect the other victims, but two of the other governing body members have CSA victims that are not me. And there's just a lot there. They're incredibly mentally unstable men that have a god complex and were given a title inside of a club. And for a brief moment in history, a couple years ago, they used that to try and come after me and my family. And I think that the thing you never know is like whose family you're going after, who somebody is, what their life is, and they picked wrong. It was a really it was incredibly foolish, and it also really shows how mentally unstable they truly are, because to be at a point where you drag your cult games outside of your cult and you hunt down people that are in their regular life that left, and you expect nothing to happen for it. You believe you're that untouchable. That's a god complex that needs
Yeah.
that's you got too big for your britches. That's the way
Totally
they
agree
got
with that.
britches.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. So leading into that, if I don't ask this question, I hope you understand.
Ask, it's okay.
I will get crucified in the comments. So I'm just going to ask it.
All right.
All right. A lot of people have asked about your two homes being burned down. They want to know if you have any records, news articles, or insurance documentation to prove those occurrences took place.
Yes, I do, but I won't be releasing any of that.
Fair enough. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I don't know
Is
who.
this something that after everything is said and done may come forward? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I plan on I already have outside the US, I've already made all of the details of this completely visible and transparent. And that's because it was a little bit uppity for a few months there, because I'm not sure why. I don't know where the lines were crossed there, but the details of everything, I will share everything openly and as transparent as I can as soon as I can, but that isn't going to be right now. And nothing that I'm saying is a lie. So I don't have many concerns about providing things like insurance documents to random strangers that are asking for it, because because again, not to dig on the XJW community, but you guys are a really small percentage of people, and you don't understand that outside of the cult you are in, you don't have any right to any information that's private to somebody else. I'm just sharing what I can, while all this is going on. So.
Yeah.
So I just want to make this point too. I called my first video XJW Elites for a reason. And I feel like the way she answered that is why I'm calling her an XJW Elite, because it's sort of like what she's saying is to the XJW community that she doesn't got to provide them with anything. Like who are they, in a
Well,
sense, almost even to waste her time on this interview, like just saying, "Hey, we want to see your insurance like documents." I'm not saying that it's so wrong that people would ask for it, but it's like what she's basically saying is I don't have to provide a bunch of stuff to random strangers. Like, you know, like who are they that they need to see that? Now, it's almost an insult because at the same time, the people asking are already like suspicious of her anyway. But one
Yeah.
thing I want to say too is that, and I'll put this on the screen when I post the video if I could find the right information, but somebody did send me information that looked up her name on like public records,
Yeah.
and there was a news article that a place she lived at had a fire that was still like under investigation. So
That's
a fire that they never figured out what it was. It remained under investigation. So I just want to say that she does have an address that did have a suspicious fire to it, and I've actually seen the documents. If I can find it,
you
then I'm
know,
gonna put it on the screen if I can remember where it was sent to me at.
all,
But
all you have to do, okay, is simply if you know the city or the state, all you have to do is contact the fire department because they keep records of fires. They have to keep records of fires. And I don't, I, in the old days, they used to be able to give you a copy. I don't know now, it's probably different, but with AI and
mhm.
the Digital Copyright Act and a bunch of other stuff, but it's too easy to verify what she says. That's why I'm saying I, I would have a tendency to believe her. The old expression, trust but verify. Okay, she's told me enough that I don't, or I've heard enough where I don't think she's making it up. Okay, but if someone had a wild hair up their ass, it's too easy to verify. She's given you enough where with a few phone calls, you could find out things. The easiest way to find out is call the fire department. They'll have a record of it and they'll tell you. I know there's privacy laws, but they can verify, yes, there was a fire at this address and blah 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 blah. It was a two-alarm fire and it's still under investigation. But at least you will know that that part of her story is verifiable. It's all verifiable to me because she's describing very painful things that no woman would really want to make public. That's why I have a tendency to believe what she's saying because for one, I've lived it also, and two, I know the makeup of the psychological makeup of most people. It's too it's too good. I mean, it's too everything fits together, and especially because I've had similar experiences, you know, not molestation, but I've tangled with the Watchtower for the last 15 years. And I know a lot of their tactics. I know a lot of their tricks. And I know people are thinking, oh, the Watchtower wouldn't do that. They're a wonderful organization. But I mean, when you're reading this stuff and then, backing it up with certain evidence, you just have to accept the fact that the Watchtower isn't, warm and fuzzy. They're not. The rank and file is, but the leadership is just as corrupt as a bad apple.
Yeah, and to go along to your point too about being able to look it up, and I feel that's where she's coming from, is that she doesn't got to come on here and like bow down and feel, okay, look, you see the documents, do you believe me? It's sort of like if you don't believe her, look it up yourself. And that's kind of like I think what she's getting at too. Like she doesn't got to provide anything. You want to look it up yourself. So the contact that I had, they just looked up her name and was able to find out based on information she's made public, like what state she was in. They were able to look up simple people search on places that people have lived. So it wasn't that hard for them to pull up that there was a fire at one of her residents that remained under investigation. So so again, if you really want to look, if you really want to know this, you can look it up. But for people to just kind of rudely, like for example, when she's doing this interview, I want real questions, and I'll touch on this later. But I sent one of my questions in this interview, and it didn't get picked. I was a little bit annoyed by that because some of the questions that Jimmy did pick were like troll questions, and it kind of annoyed me because I asked a question. I put in a question in the box about could she explain some of the organized harassment in detail, and but my question didn't get picked, but these other bonehead questions did get picked. But like, yeah, like for somebody to kind of waste her time waste like because here's the thing. I'm watching this interview and I watched it a year and a half ago because I want to see what she's got to say about the Watchtower. But why would people waste the time of this interview to ask dumb questions like that? You don't believe her, go look it up yourself and find out if you don't believe it. Don't waste her time with stupid questions and think she has to show you something to prove something.
Well,
So I like the way she answered that question.
They're going to vanish like smoke. 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 They're going to vanish like smoke.
Or defect. You're not dead. To a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog, to a dead dog like me.
Well, I look forward to hearing more in the future when some things are said and done already. All right. So, and the other question, I don't know if you can mention it. What is the name of the crime family that you say is secretly behind the curtain of Watchtower? Can you answer that?
I think that's actually generalizing in a way that doesn't do it justice. So, um, there's individual men in lots of different families that are working behind the scenes, but at a baseline level, uh, my family is one of them. So that's why when I seem really bitchy, it's because the Jehovah's Witness organization wouldn't exist otherwise. They wouldn't exist. And when they forget that and target the families that created them, we've reached a level of danger. That's a level of crazy that needs to be checked. And those checks and balances need to come from families that were behind creating the systems that were put in place.
So this is an example of I don't have to necessarily be in agreement with everything she says or even believe everything she says as far as it being connected to her allegations against Watchtower. So when she says that her family's one of the families behind Watchtower, she could be exaggerating maybe, or she could be basing it on what she believes she thinks. So doesn't it necessarily mean she's lying? Maybe she believes her family is deep state part of creating Watchtower.
or
Um,
sh- or she could have said that for leverage.
yeah. So so I don't necessarily believe that, but I'm not saying that she's lying about it. I believe that she's saying what she thinks is the truth. She thinks her family is part of that. Now, when she said her family is part of creating it, I mean, we know that it was created in the 1800s. So maybe she just means that her family line, like, her bloodline is part of that same line that's connected with the people running Watchtower.
Yeah.
But again, I can take that and say, well, I don't agree with her on that. Maybe it is true, but it has nothing to do with what she's saying about Toni Morrison. That's what I'm saying. Um, so yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
See, I'm gonna get a little conspiratorial here, because just like there are supposedly or so-called, 13 bloodlines that are royal bloodlines in America. And supposedly these are the elites, the Rothschilds and all that. And that might be a possibility with her also. Because there behind every organization, there's always families who put something together. The DuPonts, Hewlett Packard, all these people that chose to go into technology or other things, and they built these companies, and this is old money, and so and this is going into the Illuminati thing. I mean, the 13 bloodlines. And she may be a distant relation of a relation or a cousin of a cousin or something like that. And she might be connected to them. And if that is the case, that would explain why she's been missing for over a year now. But okay. I mean, you have to keep in mind the watchtower is just a public facade. There's something behind that facade that is evil, insidious, and corrupt. And that's putting it nicely. But there again, these are things that aren't a stretch to believe. It's just most people will find it hard to believe because they're not expecting it. That's the only reason why it's hard to believe, because these are things that are not expected. When you think of the Watchtower, you don't think of mob ties, you don't think of the Vatican, you don't think of the Illuminati, you don't think of the CIA, you don't think of this stuff. You think, oh, Watchtower. They got a Bibles, they print books. But you don't realize that behind that is something else. So she very much could be correct, or she may not be. It doesn't really matter. It's up to you, the person, to take what resonates with you and do the research on the rest.
I think that's something too that will probably come out in the future.
Correct.
Yeah, that's good. And people don't understand. I mean, even when I'm talking about the geopolitical side of things, people are always asking me, well, Jimmy, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, y'all don't understand the game, so to speak,
Right.
that's being played. A lot of folks don't understand that what we're seeing not only in Watchtower, but on the political side, we're watching a chess game. There's moves, there's counter moves, there's different things happening. And until the game is over, there's a lot of things that won't be revealed yet. And so I understand that.
Yeah, they bank on not only nobody else knowing how to play the game and nobody else knowing the game exists. That's
there's that meme that shows a game board and all the elites, so to speak, sitting around the game board, and you got all the slaves underneath the game board holding it up. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is this: if we all stood up,
right,
their game is over.
Right.
And so instead of fighting me or fighting Salena, you may not understand why we say some things. Ask us questions. Instead of criticizing us, ask us questions, and we will be more than happy to point you in the right direction to where you can find this information on your own. So yeah, it's
well, it is complicated because there's a lot there with people that are longtime Jehovah's Witnesses. Anything that causes them to feel like what they've been spending their whole life doing was a sham, like it was for nothing. Yeah. That's a very painful feeling. It's makes people feel like they were idiots. It makes them feel like they didn't know, like the wool was pulled over their eyes. And I don't want Jehovah's Witnesses to feel that way, because I think that does more damage than simply acknowledging that there's a knowledge gap. I use that phrase on the Rick Farron podcast thing that he does. And then I saw that a bunch of people took it out of context online and were saying I was calling them dumb. And that's a knowledge gap has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with smart or dumb. It has to do with what knowledge base are you coming from? Were you raised with this much knowledge of an organization, or were you raised with this much, or were you raised with this much? And that knowledge gap is what keeps everybody fighting with each other all the time. Because if only, say, 10% of people have a knowledge of this area and the majority have a knowledge of this area, that gap is what I'm talking about in between. It makes it very hard to have conversations because offense is taken the way that, you know what I'm saying? It makes people feel like they were stupid. And what I want to say is nobody who's a Jehovah's Witness was stupid, foolish. Like, no, it's not because you were stupid and you dedicated your life to something that was stupid. I don't know how else to put that, but it keeps me up at night because a lot of people they don't know how systematically they were trained and how systematic it is and how generational it is. And I just, I want it probably seems like a bit of opposing of what I'm saying, but if I want compassion shown to Jehovah's Witnesses, because the rank and file members, for the most part, do not engage in the criminal
Yeah.
activity that are being talked about. They're normally the victims of that criminal activity. And so,
Well, it's kind of like, we were talking a little bit about the rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses would make up 90% of the organization. Okay. And then there's a 10% of what you would call elites. Is that what we could?
I don't really know. Like I said, I only started looking back at the Jehovah's Witnesses in that context. I don't know what percentage is what at this point, but I do think that, I don't know, call
There
it.
does seem to be you could say maybe not two-tier justice system, but two-class system. You have the watchtower governing body, whoever's above them, the Bethlites, they're put up on high, and then you have the rank and file down here. And these people lord it over those folks by saying it's coming from God.
Right.
And then your rank and file are just following it because they want to be good people. They want to be good Christians. They want to do the best they can for God. They have no clue what's going on behind the scenes.
Correct. And a lot like, I think about this a lot, the way that narcissistic parents keep a golden child and they keep a scapegoat child. The society does the same. They rely on the rank and file members to have a great experience, 5-star review. We do all this great stuff. And by doing that, it makes it so that anytime someone actually speaks truthful about what's going on, the rank and file members are the ones that come at those people. So it's self-contained. It's a system that prevents anyone from the outside being able to deconstruct it or being able to, combat it at all. And
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I did expect Jehovah's Witnesses to be the first ones to attack me in coming out publicly about this. There was not a doubt in my mind that that's what would happen.
Yeah.
I half expected the EXJW community to as well. And a lot of it just has to do with that knowledge gap. It's just simply,
the way we were previously, the way our brains were previously manipulated to believe something and attack it if it doesn't. Okay. All right. We're down to 2 last questions. Another viewer would like to know about the women. Are there women that rank higher than the governing body? How highly do they rank? What's their role, and are they untouchable? I don't think anybody's untouchable, by the way.
I don't think anybody's untouchable. No, I think, the foundations out of the Vatican, the foundational organization that pumped out the Jehovah's Witnesses and other missionary churches, is a matriarchal club. It is run by women. And it has been for a very long time. And even the origins of general Christianity came out of the same matriarchal line, same matriarchal club of sorts.
And this is just one thing that I would say I disagree with her on, and I could be wrong. So I don't know if I'm right or not, but as far as women being the ones running the organization, my understanding is that I think whoever's really running Watchtower is very deep state, and I don't think she would know that answer. And again, I could be wrong, but I just want to bring out this point of where I'm disagreeing with her on. It's just I want people to understand that even if you disagree with her on certain things, don't discredit her overall story of Watchtower and Tony Moore's. Even if we disagree on some of these other things. But that's just my take, and I
Yeah.
don't think she has enough knowledge to be able to say who's really running it and the stage run by women. She may be saying it that because she believes that. But that's just my take on it. Is I don't think anybody really knows.
No, I agree. I think it's deep state run, and I say that because cl- at the top of the hour we started with a document about the CIA and the Watchtower, and you can't get more deep state than that. They're deep state all the way. And that's why they've been able to get away with everything and have court cases fixed and have stuff disappear and people change their stories. And that's what it is to me. In the end, we're really fighting to expose is the deep state.
And that will always be in place. And the reason for that is that when men carry corruption and claim to be doing God's work while harming children, there will always be checks and balances in place. So on an organizational level, there are women. I mean, yeah, there's always women that are up there making sure that things are run
It's kind of
correctly.
it's kind of funny because if you look at a like Epstein's enterprise, women were very involved in helping him run his organization.
Yep.
So we can honestly say, with the research that we've done, that it's just not men in Watchtower that are involved in this, because
Oh
historically,
no, it's women too. Oh yeah, this is an equal opportunity project. No, no. Everybody's going to the party, Jimmy. Men and women alike.
wow, wow, okay. All right. Well, Salena, so yeah, we're about an hour and a half. So let's go ahead and wrap this up for this evening. I'm sure you and I could talk way more, and hopefully maybe we'll do another follow up to this.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be cool. But in the meantime, how can others, general public, XJW community, people like myself, how can we be of assistance to you in exposing this evil cult?
So thank you for asking that. I'll preface it by saying that I was in touch with the Attorney General's office yesterday, and they said that their phones have been ringing off the hook, that they have been incredibly busy there. Their phones have been ringing off the hook, fielding calls from Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who are trying to help. And that alone, paired with Michelle Henry's awesome investigation that she's doing that is opened up to all states. So the best thing that Jehovah's Witnesses can do is call, no matter what state you're in, no matter when your abuse took place, no matter how old you are now or how long it's been since you talked about it. They are fully versed. They're prepared. They're a great team there. And rather than devoting, I would say, rather than devoting time to things like lobbying or shunning or policies that aren't criminal, they're just really horrible because they destroy families. They're not provable as criminal in any way. I would encourage everyone to look at the criminal aspects of it and then call the Attorney General's office, because they have a full picture of what's going on. They are very grateful for the XJW community and for everyone who has been brave enough to speak. And the other thing is, I would just say, try and unify among yourselves, because it is what will the more division there is, the happier the society is. And that's why, it's created to always make sure that there's division. It's created to make sure that no one ever fully unifies. But I think we can all get behind protecting the next generation of children. I think that that's a base level of humanity. And there's a lot of other aspects to it. I mean, there's ways that, people are helping each other. I've seen like a huge outpouring of love from the EXJW community towards me, towards members that are trying to leave. And there's been a very big exodus in the last month or so. I don't know the numbers off the top of my hand, but I heard, don't take it with a grain of salt, I heard it was around 90,000 people leaving. And the more that happens, and the more that people are willing to walk fearlessly and speak fearlessly, that's really what will help, is being able to set aside the conditioning, break through that conditioning, and talk about it on a real world level of, what actually is going on here.
Yeah, I've been telling folks, I put out posts on Facebook. I said, the children will be what unites humanity.
I agree.
I
agree.
I totally believe that. Well, Salena, I want to just say it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I've enjoyed this interview. I look forward to being able to do something again together. I will get this.
As soon as I'm able to talk more on it, I will absolutely love to do another interview. A lot of the details of what are going on are just not available and won't be available for a little while. But everything will always come to light. Things that are this dark and this terrible and are being done under the name of God and being used in ways that are atrocious, they'll always come to light.
Yeah, I totally believe that too, and we see it. There's a lot of things coming out now in the public sphere that were meant to be kept hidden, but for some known reason, they're starting to trickle out to the public.
Yeah.
So all we can say is stay tuned, folks. There's a lot more stuff that's going to be happening. There's more to come. Buckle up, because you have no clue what's about to happen in this world. I really do believe that. I really do believe that. So, but anyway, thank you, Salena. To the viewers, thank you so much for sticking with us on this interview. Hopefully, some of the conversation was able to set your mind at ease with some questions you may have. Hopefully, it got you thinking about other things to where you'll start doing some research. Go ahead and research Roger Bentley, research William Conley. Go look into these things. And yeah, so there's more we could talk about, but it's been an hour and a half and I gotta go to the bathroom. So anyway, thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this big picture episode. If you like it, please hit like and subscribe, and please share this video across the EXJW community, because people need to hear this. So thank you, everyone. We're sending you much love, peace, and happiness. Take care.
So the way Jimmy ended that is exactly why I brought it back, because people do need to see what she said and hear what she was talking about. So yeah, so any final words, John, for my audience?
I think I can just sum it up by saying, don't look at the Watchtower as religion. Look at it as an organization. And you'll be able to more accept certain things that don't appear to be connected, but are. And don't automatically assume that the person is a conspiracy theorist or they're lying or whatever. It may not be that way. It just may be hard for you to accept it because you're hearing things that are negative associated with the Watchtower. Please If nothing else, just remember the watchtower is associated with the CIA. That alone, just that one point alone, they're guilty as far as I'm concerned. And just, try to have an open mind about things is all I say,
Video where I went looking for Tony Morris. I found him. I wanted to come out today to show support because I grew up in a different section of the Watchtower. I don't know that a lot of people are aware that the Jehovah's Witnesses are a tiered organization. So a lot of the information that I have is different from the information that a lot of other people have, and that's why the unity is so important, because everybody has a piece of the puzzle that allows this to come together the right way, if that makes sense. Get it down. I wanted to bring attention to the CSA survivors. My CSA began at 6 months old, continued until I was 11 years old. And it was known by 37 elders and all of the governing body. It was personally covered by Tony Morris. My family was, they were threatened and intimidated and to silence for many years by Tony Morris. And I just got really sick of it. So that's why I drove to Lumberton to let them know where he was. I do not in any way condone violence. I don't condone any crazy behavior. We got to keep it peaceful. I just wanted to talk to him for a second because the effects that this organization has had on our families and on our children have been devastating. So I'm hoping that more CSA survivors feel more comfortable coming out to talk about it. It is like the most humiliating and embarrassing thing you could possibly have to talk about. And I just want everybody to know that it's not your shame to carry, it's theirs. And the more that you open that up and you let go of that shame, the more the crimes are able to be seen by the general public and the more progress we can make. I don't have many concerns about providing things like insurance documents to random strangers that are asking for it because again, not to dig on the EXJW community, but you guys are a really small percentage of people and you don't understand that outside of the cult you are in, you don't have any right to any information that's private to somebody else. You don't have any right to any information that's private to somebody else. You don't have any right to any information that's private to somebody else.
They don't have enough brain power to be able to, Svengali somebody. They don't have enough brain power to be able to, Svengali somebody. They don't have enough brain power to be able to, Svengali somebody.
Why would I be afraid of a parked car with nobody in it? Why would I be afraid of a parked car with nobody in it? Why would I be afraid of a parked car with nobody in it? Why these boneheads, right? Why this kind of stuff doesn't work with me? Why these boneheads, right? Why this kind of stuff doesn't work with me? Why these boneheads, right? Why this kind of stuff doesn't work with me? And why am I going to be afraid of someone that's so much of a coward that they would park a car and then go run and hide away somewhere, and I'm going to be afraid of a bumper sticker?